Hey, what's up guys? So this is another off-the-cuff tutorial video, and yeah, this one's about scoring damage in ways that you probably don't think about too often. This primarily focuses on neutral, so let me know if it's useful for that. And yeah, let's get started. So first thing is using hard counters. A lot of tutorial videos will probably go over this in some roundabout way, but here I'm going to just do this, and so you know, most tutorial videos will say like, oh, just use crouching C versus super dash, right? That'll get you free damage, right? But the greater picture about this particular counter in this game is the idea of hard counters, right? So you want to keep in mind, like just in the back of your head, like a list of things that just hard counter other moves. So again, in this scenario, you know, it'll be crouching C beats super dash, or like, you know, an invincible attack beats super dash, or super dash beats key blast, right? So in these scenarios, like just remembering and doing these things on reaction to these situations is really useful. And these change from character to character, from game to game, mechanic to mechanic. This isn't something that's like universal, but in the back of your mind, you know, just go, oh, this move just sort of beats this move, right? You know, one thing you might see in higher level play is like Android 21's like crouching V just beats like almost everything when at like neutral. It's like a crazy move, right? So you know, that's kind of the situation I'm talking about. You know, just do a move that beats another move on reaction to stuff. So yeah, next up is staggering hits. So a lot of times, you know, you'll at the beginning stages of play, you'll just hit buttons. Like, you know, I'm just using a light, medium, heavy here, and you know, if Goku mashes a button, I won't hit him, right? If Goku mashes a button, this will not do anything to him. But if I do this and give him a gap to press the button in, I will hit him out of that gap, right? You know, I've created enough time for him to actually do the move, but not enough time for him to actually do the move. Like, it'll partially activate, but it won't actually, you know, hit me, right? It won't get to the active frames. And so staggering your hits and then staggering the way you do like your attacks in general, like changing up the way you do your block strings, is a great way of scoring damage, because a lot of times if you're predictable, the opponent can just hit a specific button and counter you. That's why I mentioned how like hard counters first is, you know, if you do say light, medium, heavy, super dash in a block string, Goku could just do crouching heart attack right after the third hit there and hit me out of it. So instead, you know, you might want to do something else. You know, like staggering that would work, right? Or, you know, doing that will work, because, you know, Goku will hit a button that doesn't actually beat these moves, so your hard countering is hard counter, essentially. So it's good to, like, have hard counters in the back pocket, but at the same time, you want to do them on reaction a lot of the time. You don't want to do them, like, preemptively too often. Now, moving on from that is actually using and controlling space preemptively, right? So, let me... This is a pretty easy way of illustrating it. So I'm going to do this, right? You know, I predict Goku's going to air dash. There we go. So I'm controlling the space there, and I'm putting him into a block string because I know what he's going to do. Back there, I hit him out of it, right? Because of fast enough. So if you preemptively control the space your opponent's going to occupy, and this is like a lot of how you're going to score damage in this game, is like just knowing where the other person is going to be and just hitting a button. And you don't have to just do it with you don't have to do it with just your attacks. You don't have to do it with just, you know, jumping and meeting them. You can do it with all sorts of stuff. You can do it with assists. You can do it with you know, pretty much anything, right? So just making sure that you control the space you anticipate them being in is a good way of scoring damage. And a lot of times, you know, at high levels of play, you'll see people like just doing stuff and like whipping moves in the air, and you'll be like, what's going on? I don't understand what this guy is doing, right? A lot of that time, it's just controlling space that high level players anticipate the other person's going to be in, right? Or, you know, doing that safely, right? You know, if you're doing a whiff here, like, what's Goku going to do in punishment? But if he does, like, let's do this, right? So if I do that, you know, that might open me up to attack, right? But if I do that, you know, and he doesn't do anything, it's very hard for him to punish me. So, like, that's preemptively controlling that space, but at the same time, you know, if he doesn't do anything at all, he can't really hurt me that bad. It's like I can do stuff like that, right? So that's another way of, you know, scoring damage in fighting games. And then finally, I want to go, oh, sorry, one more. I want to go over with punishing. So this is pretty standard as Street Fighter. So in this case, you know, in a Street Fighter game, you might see both characters on the ground and, you know, doing this kind of like little dance, and then, oops, you know, in this case, you know, Goku pressed a button, he whipped it, and then on reaction, I just pressed a button to punish him, right? And then that can go into a full combo. Or whatever, right? That's a pretty basic combo, but you get the idea, right? So if you stand in a range where like they're gonna whiff an attack, and then you just reactively press a button to hit them in the recovery, you know, it's another great way of scoring damage, especially versus like novice players, because they might not know the ranges too well, or they might just be hitting buttons, you know, because they think a button is good, but they don't know the exact range in which it whiffs, and that's a great way of opening players who rely on specific moves a lot, right? And so to piece this all together into like one neat little package is the idea of selective reactions. So in most cases, you'll learn and master these over a long period of time. You'll go, okay, he did that, I'll do that. 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 You know, when Goku's doing these moves, you know, you're just like instinctively doing the thing that punishes them on reaction. And so what that opens you up to do is you no longer have to focus on those things, right? You know, you might actually not punish them 100% of the time, but if you can get so good that you do that without even thinking about it too often, and that's really the state you want to be in to get really good at fighting games, is just you do moves on reaction, other moves, and just get free punishes without even actively focusing on it, then you can actively focus on other things that are more important. So like in this case, you know, let's say this is the ideal range, and, you know, that Vegeta wants to be in. So Goku might reaction air dash out, and you might actually do a reaction move on to deal with that, right? You know, you might deal with like a, oops, wrong thing, right? Let's say he does that, right? So if you're like at this range, you might see Goku jump, and then you do that, right? I'm not doing it on a reaction, but I'm trying to illustrate a point. So yeah, point is, you know, that was like you can focus on that, and it's harder to react to, like the instant air dash to get out of the corner, right? Or the super jump air dash to get out of the corner. If you can focus on other things and counter those without even thinking about it, you can then actively react to the harder to deal with things that require a lot more thought and like premeditation to actually counter. So the ultimate goal here is to like basically take care of the 4 things I talked about before, along with the concept of turns in the previous video, and then, you know, put that all together, and once you're good enough, then you're, you know, you don't have to think about that, and then now you're going, okay, I have to look for these really hard to understand nuanced situations that I actually have to react to. And that's when fighting games get really intense and crazy. Like once you get a high level play there, it's like you're dealing with like split-second timings that, you know, are life and death a lot of the time. And it's really fun, it's really intense, it's really competitive, and that's really like what makes high level fighting games really fun, is that sort of intensity where you're both like looking for not quite the same things and finding like the holes in what they're looking for versus what you're looking for. Like the active reaction situations that you're both not super prepared for. And that's kind of like how you break holes in like a high level player's game, is like, what aren't they actively reacting to at this time, and then doing that, and then getting in and scoring damage that way, right? And so that's kind of like what you're building up to with all of this information. And once you get there, you're basically high level play. You're maybe like entry level, tournament level play, something like that. Once you get good at combos, things like that, that can carry you a lot of the way. But once you get to that point, you're probably beating people in turn. And so that's kind of your major goal, and that's around the level of play I've always hovered around. So hopefully that gets you up to that point. And yeah, I hope that was useful. So talk to you later. Have a good one. I'll probably upload another video sometime soon. Bye-bye.